Hello, I'm Daniel. I want to give a talk today about the Buddha. And normally I don't like to talk about the Buddha that much because I think that when we talk about him too much, we get distracted and we think the messenger is as important as the message. And I don't think that's the case. I think the message is what matters more than the messenger. So the fact that we even call what we're doing Buddhism is, I think, regrettable because, and although Buddha just means awake, so really we could call it awakenism or awakeism or something. But anyway, I'm going to talk about the Buddha because I'm going to address just what I think about why the Buddha matters. And because I think that the Buddha does matter, and although I don't like to talk about him very much, I think he is worth talking about. If I could get like the great Bodhisattva way to take off instead of Buddhism, that'd be awesome. But I think it's too late. I think this path is called Buddhism, and the Buddha didn't name it that, and his followers didn't name it that either, but I think that's what we're with. But anyway, the Buddha, to me, he matters because he was not a divine messenger. He was not a spirit. He was not a son of God or a prophet. He matters because he was a person. I like to say he was just a guy, and that maybe undersells it, and people don't like it when I say that. But he was just a person like you and me. And why does that matter? That matters because we have the same potential. We have the same potential for awakening as the Buddha. And because we have that same potential, that makes this path a little bit less daunting to me. Because we all have that potential for awakening that the Buddha had. And the Buddha, he was a genius. He was an incredibly gifted person, and that's why he was able to do what he did, to sit down and figure out the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all that. He was able to figure all that out because he was an incredibly gifted person, but he was still a person like you and me. So if a person can walk the path, live a better life, unleash their full potential, attain enlightenment, then you and I can too. So that's really significant. There have been some later developments, and there are people who have started to make the claim that Buddha was more than a man, but I manifestly disagree with that movement. The Buddha always said he was a man. So he said, there's a famous story. The Buddha is walking on a path, and somebody sees he has an aura of calm. He just seems very calm and at peace, and nobody else around did in those days. So this guy sees him, and he just immediately sees something special, and he says, "Are you a god?" And the Buddha says, "No." And then the guy says, "Are you an angel?" And the Buddha says, "No." And the guy says, "Are you a spirit?" And the Buddha says, "No." And the guy says, "Well, what are you?" And the Buddha says, "I'm awake. I'm awake." I think Buddhism, to me, and my fiance Alicia just told me this recently. She said, Buddhism's kind of like growing up. And I want to give her credit for that because that never occurred to me. But I think Buddhism is like growing up. It's about learning how to be more aware of the world around us, learning how to pay attention, learning how to see other people as people instead of as things, about learning kindness and compassion. It's about all the things we tried to learn in kindergarten, right? It's about elevating ourselves through the practice of attention and awareness. And that makes it really powerful. So yes, to me it is. Buddhism is like encouraging ourselves to grow up. It's like encouraging ourselves to live our best lives and unleash our full potential. And I think it helps me to think of it that way instead of thinking of it as a religion. Although Buddhism is a religion. A lot of people practice it as a religion. But to me, it is more than that. It is the practice of trying to grow up and unleash our full potential. And that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to live the best life we can. And the teachings of the Buddha are not commandments like in other religions, but rather they're just a set of things that the Buddha found to be helpful. So a lot of the rules, like don't steal, don't lie, don't kill, the reason for those rules, I mean, I think those rules are common sense, but also what the Buddha discovered and what I think is fundamentally true is if you're doing those things, you're promoting disharmony. And harmony with the world around us is good for our well-being, and it's good for our meditation practice, and it's good for unleashing our potential. Harmony with the world around us is a good thing. I think that's pretty hard to deny. And I think we can often see a cause and effect when we're going around gossiping, then there are bad results. People don't trust us. People don't like us. And we might think that's not happening, and people might tell us, no, I like you, but it's sort of shady at times. So that's a thing I like to think about. The fact of the matter is, the ethical rules are there because we see again and again how doing these things take us off track. They're not commandments, and also we can choose. I've been known to drink beer sometimes. There is a rule in Buddhism that says don't consume intoxicants to induce heedlessness, and some people say that means don't get totally hammered every night, and some people say abstain from alcohol. And I choose to drink beer anyway, knowing that it may somewhat get in the way of my spiritual path, and I choose to do it anyway because I want to, and because we are allowed to be flexible, because they're not commandments. And so that's an important thing to reflect on, because a lot of people come to Buddhism and they think they have to give everything up. And this is a roadmap, these are guidelines, and if you don't want to stop drinking, I don't want to kick you out of Buddhism. I want to let you join us. And if you don't want to, I think that's fine. I think I'm making a choice. It's the same as drinking soda or eating potato chips, right? I know these things are not good for me. I'm making the choice to do them anyway, but I am making that choice with mindfulness and knowing what I'm doing at least. I'm not on autopilot. I'm not lying to myself and pretending these things aren't harmful, but rather I'm just knowing that things are harmful and doing them anyway. And maybe that's not okay. Some people would say that's not okay, but the point is I'm bringing awareness into it, and in life, often we don't bring awareness to anything. So I think that in itself is helpful and useful to bring awareness to it. But again, some people have a less nuanced view and just say, no, you should abstain. And I respect that view. That's not my view. That's not a lot of people's view. But the point is, it's a guideline, and I can do it and know, well, maybe this isn't the best thing for my practice, and I could still do it because I'm not a monk. I'm a lay person, and I'm in the world just like you, and so we're always making choices, and I think that's okay. I think there is plenty of room for different choices and different views. So that kind of went off what I was going to talk about, which was just the Buddha and how he's a person like us. But I enjoyed it, so I think it was pretty good. So now we are going to sit for a few minutes in silence, and I want to walk you through the practice that I like to do, which is a kind of mindfulness of breathing leading into silent illumination. That's the practice I like to do. And we're just going to do that for a few minutes. So I want you to sit up as straight as you can and find a position where your feet are not going to fall asleep. And I like to recommend two different things to do with your hands. One is what I call the bowl, and it's this and this, thumbs gently touching, resting in your lap. And the other one is hands on your knees. So this I call the bowl, and this I call relaxation, and I think they're both good. I think whatever works for you. The point is we have a plan for what our hands are doing, because if we don't have a plan, it's going to be a problem. Okay? So I like to do an eyes open practice. So what I do is I fix my attention on something that's not going to distract me. That said, though, there's a child in the room right now, so I am going to do a closed eye practice today. And so if you can look at something that's not going to distract you, I do recommend that. But if you don't have that option, then I do recommend a closed eyes practice. And make sure my timer's set. It is. Okay. I want you to go ahead and take 3 big, deep, heavy breaths. And now I want you to bring your attention to your breathing. You can either make your point of focus the air coming into and out of your nose, or the rise and fall of your belly. I think both of these are good. So whichever one of those is easier for you to focus on, but it's important, I think it's important to grab one and stick with it, rather than just spend half your time focusing on your nose and then switch to your belly. I don't think that's a good idea. So for me, the belly's easier, but most people, I think, find the nose easier. But bring your attention to that. When I used to teach meditation to kids, what I would tell them is they can put their hands on their belly if they want and kind of really feel it. And I think that's okay. If you have a lot of trouble bringing attention to your breath, that's one way to do it. Our belly is rising and falling all the time, but we don't really notice it, do we? We don't really notice the air coming into and out of us unless there's a problem. Then we really notice it. And posture. Sit up as straight as you can. I say, if you're sitting in a chair like I am right now, don't relax. We're not here to lounge, right? Sit up straight. Some people sit like this and they're like, oh, look at me, I'm meditating. And I think, you're just relaxing, man. And relaxing's good, but it's not meditation. And I'm gonna just sit here for a few minutes. Bring your attention to your breathing. A lot of people find it helpful to do a counting practice. So on your next in-breath, mentally note 1. And on your next out-breath, mentally note 2. And that helps because it gives you a strong anchor. Why do we need an anchor? We need an anchor because our minds are distracted, being pulled this way and that way, going down a train of thought, or wishing we were doing something else, or thinking about what we're doing later, or wondering what that sound is we can hear, or whatever. So that's why we have the anchor. So every time something comes up to distract you, just go back to 1 on the next in-breath. 1 is always there to return to. 1 is always there to return to, okay? And we're going to do this for a couple minutes, like I said, and then we're going to switch to the other practice, which a lot of people find more difficult. So just be prepared for that. So in 1, out 2. In 1, out 2. In 1, out 2. And just do that for a couple of minutes. We'll just breathe together. Now, I want to encourage you to release the breath as your anchor. And we're going to do a formless practice, a practice I call silent illumination. It's a practice with no anchor. It's where we just sit and we just try to be fully present with our experience. So when a thought comes into my head, I just notice I'm thinking. What I try not to do is follow that thought to another thought. When a memory comes, I just notice I'm remembering, and I try not to follow that memory to another memory. There's a lot going on, and we want to just try to be fully present with what's happening. I hear sounds, I feel the chair beneath me, I feel my clothes on my body, which I don't really notice unless I'm paying attention. And thoughts are coming and going, but they are just coming and going. Your awareness is, I like to say, your awareness is like the sky. And all our thoughts and feelings and judgments are like clouds passing through the sky. And we do have the power, by sitting in silence, to let them just pass and not try to hold on to them. So I want you to just sit for a very short time. We're just going to sit and just try to simply be here in silence and just let things come and go. Don't beat yourself up if it's hard. It is hard. That was my timer. I need something that sounds more like a meditation bell, don't I? But I like it. So that ends our time together. If you want longer meditation videos, tell me. If you want longer talks, tell me, because I'm interested in feedback. But this is our time together, and I hope it has been useful to you. I know that was a very short meditation. It's like a micro meditation, but some people like that. Some people like really short ones. Some people like longer ones. So let me know what you think. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today. Have a good day.